Hey everybody, it's Booksy for an ATER update. I'm going to try to keep this pretty brief, but I have a lot I want to kind of go through today. Um, I'm sorry, that was a really weak start. Basically, I've been really digging into AMC lately. I was able to do a lot of work on AMC and deciphering the fractals over there. I guess I found that I'm pretty good at this. Like I'm good at seeing the patterns, and I'm starting to sort of read into the charts like a lot more, um, in terms of like seeing what's going on with the price action and maybe what they're trying to accomplish in each given move. But that being said, sometimes you don't see the forest because you're looking at the trees, right? Like sometimes it's easy to sort of see for some people like myself to sort of see the micro details, and then I miss like the big picture, right? So I'm going to talk about the big picture today, but we're going to start with this fractal right here. So just for context, this right here is the 1 hour time frame, and then this right here is the 3 minute time frame, and this is where we are currently. All right, everybody was probably watching this price action today, looking at this shape forming. Okay, and I noticed that this right here, this fractal looked really similar to something else I'd seen, and it was mostly because of this sell-off right here. Something about that sell-off made me sort of, it clicked in my brain. I was like, I've seen that before, and it was kind of right here. All right. Now, what was going on when this sell-off occurred? Well, this sell-off occurred right after, okay, um, we formed this sort of U shape after we sort of started the next cycle. And I had suspected, I said it the last time I was updating y'all, that this actually did complete. This was the second. Um, this was the second U, and so we did start a new cycle right here. Okay, ignore that for right now, the E. But this is the first U. This is the second U. Just like this. This is the first U. This is the second U. So when you look at this chart, you might be thinking, well, what happened to this? Well, that's there too. It can be interpreted a couple different ways. But basically, the way that this fractal works is is not so much about being like one to one. It's more about sort of walking through the motions to accomplish an end. Like it's able to drive the price action in a particular way that lets them make the most money as they're making the move. Okay. So that being said, when you look at this kind of walk down, right? That's what it reminded me right here, right? This sort of like walk down. And I was just like, man, I've seen that before. This right here, or even this right here, could be this sort of shape that we were sort of maybe missing. Okay. In fact, if you look at this right here, it kind of reminds me of this. If you were to like turn it on its side, you see that? See how there's this kind of wedge here? There's a wedge, and then it just drops like a cliff, and then it kind of curves back around. All right, and then it starts walking down really mechanically. See that? Like platforms. Okay, and here you get those little like waves, if you want to call them that. Boop, 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 boop. So these are there to walk down the price. They create little traps for bulls. And obviously, if you're shorting it, you're making a lot of money. They're also liquidity tests, but I'm not going to get too much into that. I'm just really confident that that's what's going on constantly, based on what I've been finding out on AMC with how that fractal, basically how it manipulates the retail market, what it's trying to do emotionally as it's kind of moving from A to B. And basically, what I noticed here is that this move, to me, if you look at this, to me that looked the same. Now I know you're probably thinking right away, like maybe that doesn't look the same to you, but just take a minute and kind of just look at it with me, and I'll explain, and then we're going to kind of finish with this fractal on how it expands out to the bigger picture, because this is what really stopped me in my tracks today and made me sort of rethink all these sort of ideas that I've been having. Right here, you see this run up. So there's a bounce, creates sort of a double bottom. Now I know this is going up a little bit, and this is also going up a little bit. But do you see how that price action right here? There's a little M, and then a thing. There's a little M, and then a sell-off. It's exact same, and it's just there's no other way to say this except that is the same fractal. And fractals, remember, they don't have to play out one to one. They almost never do because volume is different. The volume here is different than the volume that was going on here. And this is on a smaller time frame. This is happening over a few days. This is happening over like several days, okay? Yeah, this is like what, 2 days? And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, 7 trading days. So when I saw this run up, I was like, there it is. They're trying to get people to, buy in. And then they kind of have this second run up right here. See that? Right here. And then this move right here is kind of the dead giveaway, right? This really dark or this really awkward looking move. If you look on it, if you look at it on like a slightly different time frame, you see that? Look at that. It's this kind of weird like roof, and then it just drops. This weird roof, and then it just drops. And then it forms two bowls. And this is where things got interesting because originally I was kind of putting my D up here thinking that this was the D. But then I noticed this drop and I was like, oh, it made that move really fast. It's doing something more accelerated, right? This is happening on a smaller time frame and it's accelerating as it's going. And so I thought, well, maybe it's this, kind of goes down and hooks. But then I realized, no. It's this whole move right here. Because if you look at it, basically what we're seeing happening here is it's kind of amazing, actually. But it's the same. You see that? I know it's kind of tough, but just look at where this goes and what it's doing here. It goes up, has this little walk down to the side, It runs the price up again, and then we have this big sell-off. We have consolidation. It looks almost flat. Consolidation. We get another little run up, right? Both of these kind of break. See how it breaks this main shape that we had? See how it breaks out here? And then we start all over again with the sell, right? And then basically we hit the bottom again. So what started tripping me out was I looked at this and I looked at how we went from A to B to C to D and then up around here again. And then I looked and I'm like, oh, there it is again. Like it's going back to itself. What's going to happen? It's just going to infinitely kind of keep going. Like, how does this work? Like, how long can these fractals just repeat? And the short answer is I think they repeat basically to like a singularity. And I think we're kind of there. And I don't want to say that's what this was. This is just a buy order of 7,000. But I think this is possibly it. Now, this could be the bottom. And I don't mean that in a light way. Like if I say it and it happens, great. This is the bottom. It could be that there's another hard dip coming, like a one more opportunity for people to jump on board. But this is absolutely like coming to a bottleneck and it's going to burst. And then when I noticed that, then I started noticing like, see this dive bomb right into the double hook, see this dive bomb into the hook. Suddenly it was like, oh, this pattern that we've been seeing it's the same everywhere. It's the same pattern. And it hurts your brain when you start looking at it too hard because every time frame starts looking the same, the more you start seeing it. You have this, and I know it's kind of tough to see at times, but it really is the same every time. You see this move right here? I mean, it's super bizarre how this thing repeats. So you have this like cup, sell off into this cup, this ramp. All right. And then we did the same thing here, okay? Um, right here, it's the exact same fractal that played out right here. And then if you look at it on the bigger time frame, we could probably do it again on the bigger time frame, okay? So it starts hurting your brain a little bit the more you stare at it. I'm gonna leave it at that. But this caused me to think, like, why is it coming to a it's the same fractal, right? And I'm gonna have to map it. I'm gonna do that in another video just so we can kind of see all the different points of the fractal. But I think it's the same fractal that we see here. It's the same W, and that's why whenever I've been talking about it, and I've been talking about this for a while now, I've been talking about how you can see this fractal everywhere because it repeats, but it's more than just the gator snap pattern, as I called it. It's like one shape, right? And it's super strange, but when you see it, um, man, it's just crazy. Like it just doesn't go away. So I'm gonna have to map it, but I'm not gonna do that today. But what I noticed is that, man, this thing's coming to like a bottleneck. It's like they're squeezing the last ounce they can. And this has been happening on AMC. This has been happening on AMC for a while now, where the fractal patterns, and I'm not going to get into AMC very much, but I just want to show you. This is the fractal that was mapped for AMC. This took me a day to do, and I figured it out because of a repeating fractal over here. But basically this fractal is like shortening, and it's accelerating into this kind of area right here where we're at, and we're expecting a breakout, and I really think we're probably going to get it. And it might be next week because we're kind of approaching this sort of run-up period, or we typically run up. And by the way, these are this is GFC, which is a indicator that I'm gonna apply to ATER in a little bit, and it's gonna open your mind. So this is future cycles, okay, future cycle. And I'm not really big on futures, so I don't really, I don't play them, I don't understand them that much, but these are basically like expirations, essentially. And so after you pass the peak, the red always be followed by a sell-off. You kind of run it up, and they're trying to do stuff to cover their FTDs, okay, their failure to delivers. So that's why they're like ramping stuff up, and then I don't fully understand it, but I know that's generally how it works. I'm gonna have to look more into it. So but I do understand is patterns, right? And so you can see the pattern, right? There's this kind of run-up period, and then you end up having this sort of sell-off. So is AMC going to tank? Maybe. I mean, I don't think it's going to go beyond, personally, I don't think it's going to go down past like 40 or something, but I do think we're probably going to hit 52, and we might see some downside on this R, right? And then I think it's going to just repeat it, and I think we're going to see it kind of move up again. And I do think that we're going to see on a macro scale, I think we're going to see a big move up. So that being said, ATER, it's doing the same thing. The fractals are getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And as I'm looking at this, I'm looking at these other indicators, I'm starting to think like there has to be something big picture is going on, right? And so thankfully I was able to talk to Dave Marino today, who's done a lot of work on AMC and Wyckoff. And Wyckoff is a distribution schematic. And I asked him, I showed him the chart because I said, hey, this is going on in ATER. And he said, well, let's look at it. Let's look at it together. And he pointed out some things that I guess should have been obvious to me. So this is a Wyckoff schematic. And I knew there was something significant about this volume uptick right here. I guess I wasn't really thinking about it in terms of a major distribution accumulation schematic. I was thinking about it, and I put this in other videos, and I know that y'all have seen it. I'll bring the schematic up again in a minute, but basically, I just kind of like I was looking at it like this, right? Where you have this kind of area where I felt like this is an accumulation zone, and we're in the accumulation zone. And I was posting about this in the Discord, and I said that, I think anything kind of below this 624 area, Let me try it just regular. It really is at an angle, but I felt like anything, I gotta do it at an angle. Sorry, it's not straight. Um, so I had done this before, right? Where I don't know if y'all remember this. Maybe not. Maybe I only posted it in the Discord. If you're in our Discord, hopefully you recall this maybe I did put it in another video, but I remember talking about how this is like accumulation. And basically I think that 624 is significant because I think you kind of pass into the accumulation zone on that line. And I had drawn it up from here, okay? I still think it's important for that reason, but I really do think that pretty much everything that happens in this region, and certainly beyond, if you were just turning this thing around, I think pretty much everything down here is fair game from kind of right where we are in terms of accumulation. And then up here at the top, I talked about how this is really distribution up here, and it didn't happen for a very long time. It just kind of was very quick, all right? And maybe it sort of starts and ends like there, maybe it's more like that, but it's pretty smushed together. And if you recall, I had drawn this, and I said right here was kind of the trends, and we've seen these cycles repeat, and they're just going through the motions with this fractal, and they use this fractal, the major fractal on the macro scale to get from one cycle to the next, from one point to the next. And they're always trying to accomplish something, right? And in this case, they're accumulating down here in these dips, right? And then they're distributing up here at these tops. And so in terms of the Wyckoff schematic, I really wasn't looking at it clearly. I was looking at this dip and this volume, and I kept saying that I felt there was something significant about that. If you look at this right here, like this just looked super awkward. It was like the same as almost what happened in during the COVID drop, just super dramatic. And it started with like a $9 million sale, like to push it down. And I was right. It is significant. And it was significant because this is basically the spring. So we right here, this whole region right here could be thought of as like phase B, okay, where you're basically trying to do a distribution. And sometimes it comes up and it doesn't look just like this. Sometimes it looks different. And that's where it kind of threw me off because I'm looking at this area like it's some kind of anomaly because this is COVID. And I hate this because I feel like I'm learning something I didn't want to learn. But I think this was the start of this right here. I think this sell-off, it was the primary sell-off, and I think COVID was a part of it. And I know that sounds really spooky and uncomfortable, and it doesn't make me feel good, but I'm very serious when I say that because once it was kind of pointed out to me, I was like, yeah, okay, I see that now, and it makes sense because that's where I was thinking about accumulation, and then this being distribution. So just in broad terms, accumulation is just buying, distribution is selling. It's more than that though, okay? They're looking at when you knock the price down this low to $1.50, all right? How much you want to bet that at that time, okay, at that time, let's look at the fib levels on this thing. All right. How much you want to bet at that time that, you know, we're looking at these particular kinds of, let's just find a good, there it is. We found it right away. Look at that. Look where these levels hit on this Fibonacci. I almost guarantee you there were $40, $50, $32, $25. These were the options that were available back here. And this is a long ways off, right? So this is March, basically to March. So it almost took a year. But March to March, right? And yeah, and there's the whole move, right? And I bet you that if they, back here, these in the money call options up here for this like $40 price or whatever, and I'm not a big options guy, so I don't really understand it completely, but I bet you they were like really, really cheap, okay? Really, really cheap. And guess what? Right now, we've got some options, okay, that are available, and I bet you, these are some of the strike prices, are the prices that are available right now. And right up here, when they ran the price up, they're going to sell these really expensive options, and then they're going to drive the price back down so they can buy them really cheap on the run up. So I had been charting this. This was something I did before today, and I saw this on the CMF, and this is just heavy, heavy, heavy distribution, right? Like a final step in distribution that really pushes it. It pushed it down as far as it did, again, during COVID, and you never saw that anywhere else, right? And it's just it's a spring, okay? So I'm gonna bring this up. I'm gonna hide this one really quick, and let's just look at this. I put a marker here so you can kind of see what's going on down here. But this line too is not like super important. All right. So basically, what we have here is a two-year long, almost, Wyckoff, right, where you've got this major distribution, and then this right here, when you pass into phase C, the spring, okay, it's a liquidity test, but it's also like a way of getting that final accumulation, and then you go back down for a test, all right, on a base value before you go up. And I know that sounds a little like off because you're like, well, you were talking about this $6 price and all this other stuff. And again, I still think that that was the case. I think if you were to do a fib fam from this region, let's just do it right now. And I'm not saying that I was completely right either, because I think I missed some things. But yeah, okay. The reason why this works so well, all right, and why if we were to zoom in, we would sort of see all these patterns playing out really perfectly. See that? Look at that. It's like stair stepping up it. Oh my goodness. Is because it did have this target in mind. It was probably a little lower than that 624. Obviously, I got that a little wrong, but not by much. And I mean, if you pull that fib fan up and down, it doesn't make any difference on the lines. So that's probably why I missed it. But, I was a little off. So my apologies. I know that probably bummed a lot of people out when they saw it go lower. I was just kind of like, I wonder what's going on. And all right, so let's bring this all together. All right. So if the goal of this is to create a accumulation, distribution, accumulation, what comes next is the final distribution. If you look at, and what I mean by that is that we go back up. It has to complete the move, and the move will at least, look at this, it will at least go back to up the previous high if it's going to finish the accumulation distribution pattern. All right. You can look at this stuff up in your own time. You can check out Dave's videos. He's really good, Dave Marino. He looked at this and he said, this is awesome. And I trust the guy just because I've been following his stuff, and he's right. Like I've seen it happen in the market. It's 100% manipulated, right? And that's the fractals are doing is they're just guiding us along this path. So while it's important to know like where we are in the fractal to kind of understand like where we might be shifting gears, which has happened, or where we might expect giant dips, which has happened, it's also important to know where we are in the macro picture. So let's look at this. So this is the whole move, okay? Go down to the spring. And of course, what happens at the spring? Look at this volume influx. Look at this. This is massive. We went from basically, if you look at the top here, we went from basically 700,000 all the way up to, 4.5 million, almost 5 million. Not that much got sold off, right? If you know on balance volume. So like when we're looking at this, this is huge, 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 huge. This is a gigantic increase. This is the thing that happened with AMC before it made some big runs. Okay, and I just want you to notice real quick. You see this line? Let's make it white. All right, this right here. Let's look at just these two. This line and this line. This is called a divergence, right? And this divergence is humongous. You see the size of that divergence? Humongous. On-balance volume is skyrocketing while the stock price is dropping over the course of months. So what are we going to expect from this? Well, I'm not 100% sure, you know, like, I'll be honest, but if you look at this retracement, look where we end up, right? We end up right at back at 50 on the dot. And right now, if you look at cheap call options, you know, we're looking at stuff like $50 call options for like March or whatever. Now, I said in the Discord it could be like 5 or 6 months. I don't know for sure. I mean, we could look at this move and see how long that took. I think if you're looking at like from the same place, you see this, you might say like here, because we were kind of, it's like takes about the same amount of time perhaps. You could say this. And if this is the case, you know, obviously this move goes way out, you know, into late 2022, but I think it's probably more like April or something, right? Or March. Because it looks to me more like this right here because of where we are, all right, to complete the move. So yes, I'm not trying to give you hard dates. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think it's going to look just like this, but I do think what typically follows, okay, what typically follows a breakout in a Wyckoff is that you get this, I'm sorry, I keep losing my image. You get this run up, a last form of support, a last point of support. You get a sign of strength, which is sort of the last point of support here as well. So if we look at where these levels are, this would be our $50 level, and then this is somewhere kind of in the middle, the first big run-ups. And it could be that, you know, this phase D takes a little longer. It could happen like right away. It's really hard to know when you pass into a phase until you've kind of done it. But my guess, if I were to make a guess, would probably be something like, just based on what we know about these fib levels, that we might see a dip, maybe like a hard dip, and then we're going to just kind of rock it back up to like 14 or something. And then this 14 level, or even maybe up to 21. Remember how I kept saying 21 was like a hot spot? It is still a hot spot. Maybe we do this kind of thing, and then we go back up to like 50. All right, and then we kind of rattle around here, and this would be our sign of strength area. My guess is that this would even probably, you know, step down a little, and everybody would say, oh no, this is super dead, right? And then we just have this kind of all of a sudden, you know, this like rip, and where does it go from there? I don't know, you know, I guess from there it's kind of like as far as you want to go. I honestly don't think 200's out of the question, because if you look at where these channels line up, that's where it is. And we talked about how if this is like a big giant A, B, C, you know, or like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or something like that, or something like that, right? Where you could have like different Elliott waves. That could be the case. Now, if you go around saying that Booksy's saying it's going to 200 and you ignore all this other stuff, I'm not going to be happy with you, because people have been asking me ever since I figured out the AMC thing, like price targets. And I know what you really want is you want me to give you like options targets. Look, I'm not an options trader, and I don't understand fully what's going on when you make those contracts and junk. And I get the idea of it, is that you're kind of buying the option to, you know, sell the stock at a certain price, and that the values can increase like a lot. But I'm just saying, like, that's not my goal here. My goal is to sort of give you a technical breakdown. And when I look at this, this massive divergence, and I look at this dip, and I'm looking at the fractals and how they're coming to a singularity, everything's kind of coming together now. And look at this right here. Check this out. Remember how I said there was that one place on the CMF, right? And these kind of both were in the same thing. If that's the case, look what happened up here. All right, we got and it's not going to be exactly the same. All right, this VFI is a little bit like the OBV, but it indicates bullish and bearish momentum a little bit more because of positive and negative values. But look at this, okay? And then look at where we are. Do you see that? You see how it kind of comes up, it tests, and then it dips down, comes up, tests, and dips down. All right, the next thing that follows is another move up. This follows the charts, okay? And look at where the stock price is here and what happened in this versus what happened here. Do you see how this is super like non-dramatic? It's just like a really simple whatever, and then it erupts. Okay, and then this is just very, very dramatic. All right, but it accomplishes the same thing. All right, I really do think that this is gonna move like quick, and I'm talking soon. And so here's why I was bringing up that other thing. You remember that indicator that we talked about a few minutes ago, the futures one? All right, these are the futures cycles. I know it's a really colorful, fun chart. Oops, it's super dark. That's a little better, I guess. I didn't edit this, but look at where these big moves start. All right, and then where the sell-offs, of course, occur. But if you look at this right here, look at this right here, and then look at this right here, right on the money. This was not an accident, right? It was trying to, you know, we're talking about those failure to delivers and all those things, and just knocking that price way, way, way down. And then look at where we are. Look at where we are, guys. Look at it. This is November 19th. This is the 22nd, 23rd. And then we skip to the 24th. And then we have the 26th. Or, excuse me, we skip the 25th because it's Thanksgiving. And then we have the 26th. I'm talking about by next week, I think this thing's going to start moving. Now, I don't mean it's going to just start ripping. It could look more gradual, rattle around a bit. All right, it does that. We'll probably see the fractal, but I mean, we came to a point today. And we're at this place now where I just think like everything looks really similar and lined up. And this date right here, okay, is November 23rd. All right, so this is Friday, this is Monday, this is Tuesday, Wednesday. I honestly think that by Tuesday we're going to start seeing it move up. And then from there, I really do think it's probably going to be pretty violent just based on this massive, massive divergence coming to a point. I think we're going to see this thing leg up probably again on the OBV. No guarantees. I'm not a financial advisor, but this is crazy stuff. So I hope that you enjoyed this update. I hope you get something out of it. And yeah, if you're in AMC, you should check out the AMC stuff I'm working on too. Thanks, guys.